What's up guys, welcome back to InvestingPH. So the first month of the year is done. You know, when I look at it, time really flies by so fast. Every time I do my monthly portfolio reveal and look at my Excel sheet, I look back to where I started. In July of 2019 with only 70,000 pesos worth of investment. And who would have thought this would grow to this amount? Well, although it's still far off to what I am aiming for, it's still a good progress for me. Because back then, I couldn't even feel what I'm doing. The dividends I get was so small, my portfolio was in the negative. COVID happened, driving my portfolio downwards. I was already losing steam, questioning if what I'm doing is correct. But I just continued it because deep down I know in investing, you should have a long-term mindset that there are tons of people out there that became rich just by consistently investing their money, month after month. And I know in the future, when I reach my financial goals, I would look back again as what I am doing now and say to myself, wow, I only had 70,000 pesos worth of investment back then. So if you're feeling tired that you don't feel the progress of your investments, just imagine yourself 10 years from now, your portfolio would be bigger by then, and you would just reminisce the time that you had a very small investment portfolio, that your dividends per year can only buy you a cheap meal. It will all be a memory during that time. So just stick to your investment plan. It will one day be worth it. Don't listen to what other people say. If you know what you're doing is for the betterment of your life, just stick to it. Anyway, with that introduction, I hope you got inspired in some way. So before we begin, I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm. So with that, let's start. Let me remind you guys, everything I say here are for educational purposes only and should not be used as basis for your investing decision. Do research on your own before investing in any company or any investments out there. So our first portfolio reveal for this year. Now I have something to share to you in the end of this video, which is really important for long-term investors. Be sure not to skip it later. Now I still see a lot of comments asking me what broker I use. So I use Phil Stocks as my broker. As for how I choose my broker, it all comes down to comfort for me, the ease of transferring money because they are all the same. Anyway, let's move on. Right now my total invested money is at 1,126,600. Still, I have never withdrawn anything from my account. With that, my portfolio right now has a positive 16.08%, having a total gain of 181,125. This is with the dividends reinvested. Now, if some of you are wondering how difficult it is to manage my investment portfolio, you know, I only become active in my investing life whenever I give you guys a monthly update. I don't usually look at my stocks, I just leave it and look at it whenever I buy companies. And the only time I do some research is when a certain company piqued my interest, and I only update those companies once a year. Although sometimes when I have extra time, I look at quarterly reports to see what the company's new projects are and how they are doing financially. And that's only once every 3 months. Because when you trust the company you invested in, you can just leave it, let them grow. The price falls, who cares? Price fluctuations doesn't mean the company's fundamentals changed. Companies don't change that quickly in just mere days. For me, the less you are active in your investments, the better, because you don't see the daily ups and downs of the market. You don't get sad when you buy a company then see the price falling down as soon as your order was made, or you don't get into panic mode whenever the companies you bought is taking a downturn. Because like what I've said, when you know the companies you hold are strong companies, you have that trust that you can just leave it and not care for the daily movement of the market. Now, I'm saying to you this because I too was once like that when I started. I always look at the market and feel those things. So chill, invest in great companies, then chill. I may look active because I do stock analysis videos, but really, it isn't like that. I also don't have that much time every day. Anyway, moving on. So what happened this January that affected my portfolio? Well, of course, the force that greatly controls the market this past 2 years, the COVID cases. But what's different now is, even though alert levels were raised, the market didn't drop too much unlike before. Because now is different. Back then, we only have a small percentage of our population that were vaccinated, and hospitals are more ready and experienced because they had been handling this for 2 years now. Anyway, for me, every time I hear bad news, I see to it I ready my cash because I know some of the stocks in my watch list would go down. That's my mindset. And whenever the market is sideways like what's happening for months now in the PSE market, For me, that's even better because it gets me to buy and buy more in a longer time frame because I don't care if my gains right now aren't moving. I don't look at 1 or 2 years return. No, I have a longer time horizon. With a sideways market, I can hoard more stocks. This would grant me more dividends in the long run, and when the time comes that the stock market would go up, I have already gained a good enough position. So don't rush it. Just think of it, if the market would go up so fast, you could only invest this much. Unlike when it's sideways, you can invest a lot more at a much cheaper price. And of course, the dividends would be much bigger as well, since the price is lower. Now moving on to the stocks I bought this month. First, LTG with 2,200 shares at an average price of 9.68. Now what I love in buying holding companies, with just one company alone, you can hold different companies already. Like for LTG's case, by owning it, I already hold PNB, Asia Brewery, Philip Morris Philippines, and their real estate business, and Tanduay Distillers, and their other businesses as well. That's why I really love owning holding companies, at which you will see later. Second, I bought more shares of AUB at an average price of 44.20. And lastly, FLI. Now some have asked me why I'm not investing in other REITs like PhilREIT, MREIT. This is because I already have a large portion of my investment in their parent company, but I'm still thinking of it, especially for MREIT, to get bigger dividends, since MegaWorld don't give out dividends that much. With this, these are all the stocks I own. Right now, with the continuous acquisition of LTG, it has now become my second largest holding, so most of my investments are concentrated on just 10 stocks. I see comments saying I am overly diversified. You know, diversification is a term that is being used wrong because I don't buy these companies to diversify my investments. I buy these companies because they have good financials and is trading at a cheap price based on my intrinsic value computation. Because for me, it doesn't matter if you hold 5 or 10 or 20 stocks, it all comes down to the quality of your investments. So don't overcomplicate too much to say, oh, I need only a few stocks in my portfolio. But how can you do that if all the stocks you bought are already trading at a high price? Should you wait for them to go down even more because you have a rule of owning only 5 stocks? That can't be done for some people because a lot of us are relying on monthly salary. Your cash source isn't like those big hedge funds which has tons of money to start with. A lot started from zero. So setting a rule for owning only a certain number of stocks doesn't make sense for me, especially if there's an opportunity right in front of you. To give you an example, imagine these two investors, Peter Lynch and Warren Buffett. Both of them don't advocate diversification, but Peter Lynch has thousands of stocks in his portfolio back then, while Warren Buffett has a concentrated portfolio. Both of them are both successful investors. Now, Peter Lynch didn't diversify for the sake of diversification. It doesn't mean he has a lot of stocks. He is diversified. He has those investments because he saw it as a good investment, not for the sake of having a lot of companies at hand. Get the point? So don't get the wrong idea that what you're doing is wrong just because you have more stocks at hand than other investors, especially if those are great companies. Anyway, this is my portfolio group by sector. Like what I've said earlier, my biggest investments are holding companies, at which by holding these stocks, I get to hold other companies with it indirectly. For my dividends, since it's the start of the year, the only dividends I got so far was from Ayala Corporation with 155.7 pesos, making the total dividends I got to 52,116. Let's see if we can break the record set last year, which was 43,000 pesos, amounting to a monthly average of 3,590. Now, my goal is to have an average dividend income of 10,000 pesos before 30 years old. But just a reminder, it does not mean that I have to forcefully invest in high dividend stocks just for the sake of reaching that goal. It still has to be in line with my investing criteria. It should still be a great company that is trading at a fair price. If the market does not permit me to reach it because there's no dividend companies out there that is in line with my investing criteria, I will not force it. That's why if you notice, even though I like dividends, I'm not just investing in the highest dividend yielding stocks out there. So this is the answer to those of you who are asking in the comment section below why I'm not investing in this certain stock. Because for me, it does not meet my investing criteria. I don't just invest based on dividend yield. Moving on, this is my portfolio performance side by side with the index. Now I'm just doing this to see how my strategy is doing compared to the PSEI. But let me remind you, there are certain strategies out there that lags behind the index, but in the longer horizon comes out the winner. Some value investing strategies are like that. Why? because you're investing in undervalued companies to begin with. Mostly, these companies aren't the most popular. Their price is going down. These tends to underperform the index in some years. That's what I was expecting to happen as well, because the companies I'm buying are the laggards, are the stocks that aren't popular, and the price is going down. Now, why am I saying this? Because yes, compare your portfolio to the benchmark, but don't just look at the short-term performance. For me, 2.5 years worth of returns don't matter that much. It's the long game that counts. Anyway, the total returns of my portfolio is at 16.08% in the 2 years I've been investing, while the PSEI is at a negative 11.23%. With that, this ends my update for you guys. Now don't leave yet. I just want to emphasize this. Make it simple, please. That's how you stay in the long game in investing. The simpler your strategy is, the less mistakes you can do, and the more you can continue it in the long run. And when you are investing, remember, have a longer horizon. I remember in the book, The Intelligent Investor, there's a page there where you have to take a contract to have a minimum time period of 10 years. When I recited this, I can remember it clearly. I was reading that in the clinic because I have no patient during that time. I even raised my hands announcing this, and I even let my coworker, whom I encouraged to invest as well, to say the contract as well. So I share to you this contract from The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. I, InvestingPH, hereby state that I am an investor who is seeking to accumulate wealth for many years into the future. I know that there will be many times when I will be tempted to invest in stocks or bonds because they have gone or are going up in price, and other times when I will be tempted to sell my investments because they have gone or are going down. I hereby declare my refusal to let a herd of strangers make my financial decisions for me. I further make a solemn commitment never to invest because the stock market has gone up, and never to sell because it has gone down. Instead, I will invest $600 per month every month through an automatic investment plan or dollar cost averaging program into the cheapest stocks in my watch list. I will also invest additional amounts whenever I can afford to spare the cash and can afford to lose it in the short run. I hereby declare that I will hold each of these investments continually through at least the following date, which must be a minimum of 10 years after the date of this contract, February 1, 2022. The only exceptions allowed under the terms of this contract are a sudden, pressing need for cash, like a healthcare emergency or the loss of my job, or a planned expenditure like a housing down payment or a tuition bill. I am by signing below, stating my intention not only to abide by the terms of this contract, but to reread this document whenever I am tempted to sell any of my investments. This contract is valid only when signed by at least one witness and must be kept in a safe place that is easily accessible for future reference. Now you can see this contract at page 225 of the book Intelligent Investor. Put this in a picture frame to be reminded every day. So with that, before you leave, I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button first. And if you still aren't subscribed yet, might as well click that button as well. So thank you and see you in the next video.